And religiosity does not seem to play that greater role in their life, a spiritual element of their life. They're more cultural than they are spiritual. Is this also going on amongst young Ethiopian Israelis?
We do see that. You know, some of them, I see it in my immediate family, my niece, my nephews. Some of them are ultra-Orthodox. Some of them are just, they don't care about religion, you know, they're more cultural, to hear Ethiopian song, or I mean to go to the clubs and everything. But when I see most of my family, they're ultra-Orthodox. And you know, young kids, when they finish the army, they come back with kippah, right. You know, kippah, black kippah, and become very religious. And yeah, the Ethiopians adopted that culture also before. We have Ethiopian Cecil now, very successful ones. Their status is the one who studied in Israel, they have the same status like other Cecil, other rabbis. The thing that we forget a little bit is because of the situation in Israel, in Ethiopia, the Kesim or the Kesim, they're like God, you know. We just trust them, whatever they say is holy. Now there are some other things in Israel, you know, it's different than it was. Their power is not as powerful like it was in Ethiopia. But this one, the one who studied in Israel, they are more Israelis, but they have the same status like other Kesim. I wanted to see the Kesim from Ethiopia will be the higher than the you know, to respect right. them. But it's going and, you know, getting a little bit going down.
But you know, Hadani, who was just the last chief rabbi of the Ethiopian community, I remember he was ordained in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And he had the dream of opening a yeshiva that would inculcate both the traditions from Ethiopia and synthesize them with the traditions of Sephardic Judaism. Mm-hmm. But that never really took root. And so for us, this has nothing to do with disrespecting other traditions in Judaism, as much as it does saying, why isn't, and the traditions from Ethiopia. You've said a community that has a history over 2,500 years. You've made that statement here today at least twice, maybe 3 times. Mm-hmm. As I look at other communities of Jews around the world, hardly a one of them can say that their community is 2,500 years old. Hardly a one of them will say that their ancestors refused to sleep in the bed until they returned to Eretz Israel. That they would sleep under the bed as opposed to on a bed until they returned to Israel. The devotion and the dedication and the commitment to Torah, to Judaism, and to the people was second to none any other community anywhere in the world. And what we want to see, and what I want to see, and I think our community throughout this place, my dearest ambassador, in Nigeria, there are over 30 million Igbo who claim descent as Hebrews. I had an Orthodox rabbi say to me, oh my God, what will happen if these Igbo come back to Judaism and they don't come back under the Orthodox banner? This congregation is 100 years old. It doesn't matter if the Orthodox never say, oh, you're not Jews. We're not going anywhere. My children and my children's children and my children's children's children are going to be here, as will these children. And so because the rabbinute said, oh, we don't know if they're Jews, that doesn't mean anything to us. That does not diminish who we are. And that does not diminish, and it will never diminish our support for you and our brothers and sisters there in the land of Israel or in the land of Ethiopia or in any land throughout this world. And that's one of the main things that I live for, to see Jews of African descent united as a people in a conglomerate, not taking anything away from any other community, but not letting any other community define our relationship with Hashem and our relationship with each other. We'll not allow that.
Amen.
We'll not allow that
Amen.
in my lifetime.
Amen. 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 You know, we do not need anyone to tell us about our Judaism. That's what we say in Israel, in the Ethiopian Jewish community. I don't need anyone to tell me about what's Judaism. My late father can tell anybody everywhere what Judaism means. So that's how I grew up. That's how I grew up. That's how I will stay. That's how I will educate my kids. Judaism is, you know, as I said, for the first time, 2,500 years.
Yes.
I have a question. Yes. First of all, I'd like to say, are you aware that?
Into the microphone.
Oh yeah. Are you aware that Eden Eleni won the X Factor in Israel?
Yes.
Okay, so I know that's a big cause for celebration among the community. And I advise you all to go on YouTube. Eden Eleni is a 17-year-old whose mom is Eden Allen. Yes, Eden Allen. Thank you.
Tell them what the X Factor is, though.
The X Factor is similar to The Voice in America. And she is the winner in Israel, 17-year-old Ethiopian, mom's Orthodox. From Jerusalem. And she's a fabulous singer, and I advise you to go on YouTube and check her out. But I just want to say that. And I just want to say, in the age of algorithms and robotic technology, and coming from a subsistence agrarian culture, I imagine to be able to adapt to that aspect of the West, you probably would say someone is 30 years behind in that structure. How has the Israeli government responded to making adjustments for that next generation to acquire the technical education that's going to allow them to have employment in generations to come as we move more into a technological society? How are they going to prepare these generations?
As I said, the second generation is getting more and more become Israel. You know, there's no any country in the world which the Prime Minister is leading the National Committee to improve the Ethiopian immigrants. There's no one in the world. Bibi said, I'm going to lead this committee to see more Ethiopians in the government offices or the higher education or whatever. You know, I was amazed when I see that. Because he said, okay, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that. I can accept or not accept the affirmative action in Israel. We have so many educated people. Why we have to have, because we are Ethiopians, we have to choose to get that position. We can do it. We have so many educated people. in Israel, especially the second generation now, can't do it. We don't need that. When I said that, some of our people said because of the things that I said, our background.
Right.
So it's okay to get that affirmative action to give us sports for Ethiopians. I personally don't like it. I'll tell you why. I'm not an ambassador because I'm Ethiopian. I'm an ambassador because I'm Balainish. I can do it. I can do it the best way that I can. For the first time, I brought the Israeli Prime Minister to visit Ethiopia. For the first time in the history. You know, people are talking Queen of Sheba and King Solomon.
Right.
King Solomon didn't go to Ethiopia. Queen Sheba came to Jerusalem. This time, Bibi went to Ethiopia. Because
we want to know what he did there.
What?
No, I'm only kidding. It's like King Solomon.
He went to his Queen of Sheba, so that's fine. That's fine. But you know, we can do it. That's why we can do it. Yes, we can. Exactly. That's what we need to do. The only thing is to promote and to educate it. When we start to work on one thing, we are successful.
You know, Ambassador, many of us in the African American community in this country don't appreciate the fact that our particular experience here is not necessarily the experience of other people of African descent in other places around the world.
Yeah.
And so for us, we had Jim Crow. Well, you never faced Jim Crow. You may know what Jim Crow is from living in America the years that you did. You may understand how we face discrimination here, but those elements of our existence and experiences here were not necessarily transferable to your community in Israel or to your community in Ethiopia because you come out of an African country itself. And so I think that African Americans don't necessarily have a worldview that helps them to understand that what we have experienced here is not the same thing that other people of African descent have experienced in other places in the world. Many of our leading artists left America and went to France. They went to Great Britain. They went to other places where discrimination was not what it was here. And so it's in hearing what you are saying, it's based upon your life experiences. So that we didn't, what we experienced was more discrimination that was more institutionalized, okay? And so therefore, our experience simply was not your experience of the Ethiopian community in Israel, because the individuals that were discriminatory towards Ethiopians, it wasn't from the government. Here, discrimination was promulgated by the government and then sent into the other elements of the society. And so it was exactly the reverse as it was in other places. And that's an issue, I think, that particularly our people that have never traveled outside of the United States, traveled to Africa, traveled to Europe, seeing African people thriving in other settings in the world, so that their world experiences is beyond the United States of America. And they don't understand why other people from Africa want to get here. They don't see it because they see the discrimination that their grandparents or parents or they themselves went through. And they don't understand that people from Nigeria, Sudan, people from Ghana, people from Cameroon, South Africa, and everywhere on the continent, or Brazil, would give their eye teeth to be here and to be in this country, because they see it truly as a place of opportunity where African Americans don't necessarily see America in that same light. So talk to us a little bit about how do Africans see America as opposed to how African Americans see America.
You know, now I have been to Ethiopia 5 years. Everybody's dreaming to be in America. Tell the truth. Nobody's reading the history. Nobody is just wanted to go back and to search, to research, and to know what was here. That's the land of opportunity. That's how they call it. To come to America, a big America. You know how many people are feeling this DV to come to America? I mean, to get that lottery to come to America. America is a land of opportunity. I cannot say that it's not. It is. But the thing in Africa is there are so many young people without work. They finish college and they don't have work. That is why it's what driving them to go to another country. America is a dream, but not only America. Also, they're going to Sweden or any other Western countries to get a better life. What I'm saying is, if they develop Africa, Africa is the future of the world. Tell you the truth. It's now, without developing Africa, you know, in Europe, they don't have anything anymore. They did what they did, the slave trade, the colonialism, whatever, but they don't have anything now. Africa is, everybody's opening their eyes to go and to invest in Africa. Without Africa, the world is going to be a different world. I'm telling you.
You couldn't have a cell phone without Congo because it has all the elements that are in your cell phone.
Yes.
They picked it up in Congo.
Out of curiosity.
Nice and loud, Don, please.
Yes, out of curiosity, Ambassador, the Chinese have implemented this plan called the Road and the Belt in terms of building a lot of infrastructure in African society, in African countries. My question is, in Ethiopia itself, how much development is China doing in Ethiopia, and how is it impacting that society? And what is the relationship between China and Israel?
China and Israel, we have a very good relationship. China is kind of, I don't know if I can call it colonialism, but China is in Africa, except Rwanda.
Except Rwanda.
Rwanda, they told them, if you come to Africa, bring the experts and the money. The employees has to be Rwandan only. That's why we don't see many Chinese in Rwanda. In Ethiopia, there's a big, they're coming with a lot of money. You know, a lot of money. There are problems. The roads that the Chinese are building, it's not very successful one. Now they start to understand. But still China is coming with a lot of money in Africa. They are in Africa almost everywhere. They are building. They have a lot of money. I don't know where it comes from. So Israel, we have, you know, a good relationship. They are buying a lot of technology from Israel. Some of the people start to study the Tanakh, the Chinese,
Oh, really?
because they do not understand why the Jewish people are very successful, winning the Nobel Prize. Why the Jews are winning a lot of Nobel Prize. If you compare it, the Chinese to reach, to reach the Israeli level, they have to have more than 2 million Chinese has to win the Nobel Prize. I mean, comparing the number of Jews in the world and the number of the Chinese. So they started to study Tanakh. Maybe the Tanakh is something, the opening their mind.
The Chinese are beginning to study Torah. So that in studying Tanakh and Torah, they can learn why, with the Jewish population in the world, they are getting a disproportionate number of the, what do you call them? Nobel Prizes in different areas, physics and economics and so forth. And the Chinese have over 1 billion people. And we're saying, wait a minute, it's only this many of them, it's this many of us, how are they getting all of these Nobel Prizes? It must be in what they're studying. Keep your kids in the Tanakh. I want you to tell you this. Albert Einstein was a Talmudist, and he studied Tanakh. And the theory of relativity, every Hebrew letter also has a numeric equivalent. And Einstein understood and developed his theory of relativity from his study of Torah. Keep your children in the Torah if you want them to be a Nobel Prize winner.
It's very true. I heard from so many people.
Please, the mic is up here. You got to be here. Come on. Move it. We're getting ready to wind up.
Shalom, my sister. I'd like to know our brothers in Ethiopia and in Israel. I'd like to know the outlook that you have for our country, for the brothers that's over here in this country, in this hemisphere. I'd like to know, just to piggyback on your question, Rabbi, I'd like to know the insight that you have for our people that's been kidnapped and dragged to this country. What's the outlook from your point of view?
Thank you. So he's talking about the slave trade and our people being brought here as slaves and cut off, as it were, from our parts. Do you have a perspective on that?
It's a very sad story, but the human being couldn't do it, you know. It's a very sad, the slave trade killed Africa, and the colonialism buried Africa. Now Africa is rising. Africa is rising now. Africa is working very hard to come out from those two very inhuman things happen to African people.
In other words, we have to raise ourselves up.
Yeah.
My sister, or whoever was next. So, come on, whoever's next. Come on, Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for being here today. My name is Thomas, and I'm from IT. I'm sure that you're aware that my country was the first country that recognized the Jewish state when you guys were doing the British mandate for the partition of Palestine. And also, we were the country that accepted the Jewish refugees when the United States turned them down as well. So, the fact that your country was the first one that was in my country during the earthquake, some of the, I don't know if you're aware that some of the Asian refugees were taken to Israel. I'd like to know what is the condition, what is the welfare of those Haitians that are now living in Israel. Did we put them with the Jewish government all over Israel, or are they in the African community in Israel with the other African people that are already there?
The history of the Jewish people, you know, after the Holocaust, America didn't want the refugees. Nobody wants the refugees. But that's why we became strong. Israel became strong country, vibrant, working very hard. Here in the United States, mostly when you go to Africa, everybody will tell you the media is owned by the Jews, the hospitals, or the very important jobs are held by Jews, which from my experience, the Jewish people here are very hard workers. In Israel, our Prime Minister said, Israel at the World Economic Forum, they said Israel is the second startup nation. Our Prime Minister wasn't happy. He said, well, we are not number one. If somebody was there, wow, we are second place, thank God. He didn't say that. Why we are not the first one? That's how the Israelis or whoever trying to work and to prove that we can do it. That's what the Jews came to America, worked very hard, after they went through this horrible days in Europe, the Shoah or the Holocaust. They came to America, and most of the Jewish people in America are very, very wealthy, very rich. You know why? Because they're working very hard.
But he's asking about the Haitians that were taken to Israel after the earthquake, and I think he's trying to get an idea. Do you have any idea as to their status in Israel?
Asian who are in Israel. I mean, Israel, I remember there were people coming after, it was one of the former Soviet countries that Israel, Kosovo, I think. Mm-hmm. Israel brought Muslims from Kosovo.
Right.
And resettled them in Israel.
So he's
that
asking,
is same thing with the Asians.
The Haitians.
Coming to Israel and resettled them. Israel is bringing wherever there is a problem. We have a lot of Syrians, coming to get a treatment now because of what's going on, the horrible thing going on in Israel, and they are just bringing them.
Yes.
Hi, I know that you mentioned that you had aspirations to be an ambassador when you were a child, and then it came to fruition. So my question is, did you have any dreams that you implemented once you got in the office? And seeing that Israel is an ally of America and they get aid and everything that they need from America, were you able to, if you did have some dreams that you wanted to implement, give opportunity to the Ethiopian people that did not exist before you got into the office? Because I hear and I see videos like on the media of like the women having to be taking these, what would you call it, birth control, and forced birth control, and only allowed to have 2 children. And also the alt-right that attack the Ethiopians as they walk in the street, as they are in the park, if they are in the supermarket. So, I'm just telling you from what I saw.
Okay.
What are the things that can you get money to the people that need it, your people?
Money from where? What are you saying?
I mentioned that, America gives aid to Israel.
Right.
The money that, now that you're holding office in the government, are you able to funnel money to the people at the
Ethiopian people in
level?
Israel. Okay. Very good.
There are so many organizations coming from the United States to help the Ethiopian Jewish communities in Israel. You know what? We have more than anybody else. We have different organizations, which I said, I don't know if I like them, to tell you the truth. Because we have to, I don't mean that we don't need help. I told you what our background was, and to fill the gap, we need additional help, which There are so many organizations helping us. The American aid coming to Israel is for, the American government is helping Israel for different reasons. But for the Ethiopian immigrants, there are so many organizations helping the Ethiopian community. But as I said, we have to come over all of it and get.
I think to Catriel's question, should we be speaking more to African American representatives and other representatives in Congress about seeing that a lot of the aid that the United States gives to Israel, do you want us to lobby that more of that aid would go to the Ethiopian community? I think it's really, in essence, what you're really asking. Is that correct? Is that correct? Okay. So should we lobby Congress people that represent us here in America to say the aid that the United States gives to Israel, we would like to see a greater portion of that aid assisting the Ethiopian community?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay, that was her question.
I don't think so.
Okay, why not?
Because one, there are so many other organizations who are helping Ethiopians. Second, most of the Ethiopians now, they say the second generation is part of the Israeli society. There's no need, yeah, they are getting closer and closer. The parents, yes, they do need help, but there are so many other organizations helping them. I don't think that lobbying for the Congress is to help the Ethiopians. Maybe insulting the Israeli government. So I don't think there's a need to lobbying at the Congress to help the Ethiopian community. But you mentioned something about, where is the lady? You mentioned the birth control. I said the government is not the entity who discriminates Ethiopians. I told that there are organizations. I don't know if you remember that they were taking Ethiopian, donating blood, and they throw the blood. It was Magen David Adom, which is an organization. Now we won. The Ethiopians, we fight, we won. Now we can donate the blood. Except maybe me and my family, because we were in Ethiopia. Now, like other diplomats, when the American diplomats coming back to America, they don't donate blood 3-4 years until we get our bloods getting cleared. Except me, the rest of the Israeli Ethiopian-born Israeli who lives in Israel, they can't donate the blood. We won't.
If you ever travel out of the country, particularly to a country anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa, they ask you, if you go to the doctor, have you traveled? Where have you traveled to? So forth and so on. And then they're very, very particular about, the circumstance. My sister.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I wanted to piggyback off of the China question before. You said that China is in Africa except for Rwanda, where Rwanda government is requiring them to use their own employees, the country's employees. The other countries where China is, they're bringing their own employees. Are those employees assimilating into those African cultures? Or are they setting up their own little mini Chinatowns like we see all over the U.S.? And how is that impacting the African communities? Are they able to lift themselves up because of all of the money that's coming in from China?
That's a very good question. Most of the Chinese companies, they're bringing their own employees. That's the problem. Rwanda, as I said, they said if you come with your employees, don't come. Just bring the money and the experts. The rest, we have our own people who can work on those buildings. The rest of the countries, other countries like in Ethiopia, they have 150,000 Chinese working in the constructions or whatever the Chinese companies are doing, which is.
I was just going to say, also, when they have those employees, are they assimilating, like marrying, living
They started now. They started, I see a few Chinese married with Ethiopian women. As you may notice, Ethiopian women are so beautiful, seriously. So they started to marry Ethiopians. But they don't have their own town in Ethiopia. I didn't see anything.
But it's really the issue of the governments of those African countries that are not necessarily putting the types of demands on the Chinese and other foreigners. Because when you go to different places, Nigeria, you bump into a Chinese almost everywhere you turn. In Nigeria, in Cameroon, the French are there, the Chinese are there, in Ghana, it's the same thing. So it's really the government's responsibility of these countries to put greater demand on the countries like China that are coming in with the infrastructure and so forth. It's good. Was there someone else? Go ahead, Ray.
My question is Shalom.
Shalom.
My question is, how do we reconcile the fact in Israel that Donald Trump is so popular in Israel, yet he supports Nazis here, he's been accused of being anti-black, anti-people of color, and secondly, how does the fact that he now moved the American embassy to Jerusalem?
He's promised to do it.
Yes, he's going to do it. But how does that impact the peace process over there? That was one of the major stumbling points there.
You got it,
Jerusalem is our internal city. This has been since the state of Israel was established. Jerusalem is our capital. Whoever would like to move their embassy to Jerusalem will welcome him. And about Trump and America, I better leave it for you. This is your country, this is your president. The American people elected him, so I don't have anything to say about it.
She's not getting into that kettle of fish.
But about Jerusalem, we are really happy that finally we wish that they will move the embassy to Jerusalem. It doesn't mean that we are not we do not want the peace process. We do want the peace process to continue. That doesn't mean that if the American embassy is moving to Jerusalem, that the peace process will stop. It's not. But to recognize our capital by the American government, for us, we know it. It's our capital. We know it. We always say our government is in Jerusalem. The parliament is in Jerusalem. The government offices are in Jerusalem. That's our capital. So if somebody recognizes, we'll welcome him. Guatemala did that. Honduras, we are welcoming them. But the rest I told you.
Come on, Tony.
Okay. So, how you doing, Shalom? My question is a twofold question. Racism being a hot button topic nowadays, how are Jews from African descent being received in Israel? This is my first question. I mean, as far as politics goes, we are all looking for innovative thinkers and younger thinkers. But if we are not able to go into Israel with the mind that we are going to be accepted, how can we get those innovative thinkers in Israel? So that's my first question. How are we being received in Israel as being Jews from the African descent? My second question is, with you being from Ethiopia and a woman, what is some advice that you would have to our young women as far as breaking barriers and going against social norms in order to ascend to political affiliation to help with some of the policies that's going on that's not helping us?
There are actually two questions. to accept the Africanism in Israel is just, we are a good example. We are in Israel, we have been accepted. As I said before, don't look at the media. Just the media is bringing the negative things. So be initiative, be in Israel, visit Israel, know about Israel, read about Israel, which is wonderful. I think which is very important. And, you know, we are there. I don't need, you know, let's think about it. Yemenite Jews, do they look like Ashkenazi Jews? No.
No.
The Indian Jews, do they look like Moroccan Jews? No. They look like India. Ethiopians, we look like Ethiopians. That's how the environment, how we live. And we were the part of Ethiopia, and that we kept our religion. So that we are accepted. So the African Jews, slowly they will accept. We are accepted in Israel, and please do it. What was the second question? Sorry.
And the second question was?
Any advice that you would give our younger girls in here?
I love to do that.
Yes.
You know, I was talking today at the church and telling them my story. If I did it, anyone can do it. Seriously. Dream big and start to fulfill the dream. Nobody thought that I left Ethiopia as a teenager and I went back as an ambassador. You know, I was telling them the story when I went to the Hebrew University and when I was in the lecture room, I was writing the lecture in Amharic, Hebrew words in Amharic. And then when I go back to my dormitory, I was trying to read what I wrote. If there was in one sentence 10 words, maybe 5 of them I don't know that, I have to translate that to English, from English to Hebrew, because there was no dictionary from Hebrew to English. I did that and I finished my studies in 3 years like everybody else. A girl running, grow up at the house, which we didn't have electricity, running water, coming out from there and studying Israel, finished my studies, and become an ambassador. If I did it, you can do it.
Amen.
Right. You can do it.
So we have the last 2 questions, and I'm so glad. I was going to call, but I'm delighted that we have I thought Marnina was coming up there, but she kept going over to the cheese table. I thought she was going to ask a question. Well, but we have, so Marnina, do you have a question? I got 5 minutes. No question? Where's Gabe at? No question, Gabe? You don't even have a question about bar mitzvahs in Israel? All right, my sister. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Yasmin. If the education program in Ethiopia, has it changed since when you lived there, and if so, how?
Very good. Thank you very much. The system is changed a little bit because a little bit because I was there a month ago and we went to visit my school and my house. The only change I saw in my house, there is electricity now, which we didn't have the electricity when I lived in that house. Now they have electricity. The school is almost the same. We went to 6th grade to speak with the students. One girl was 10 years old, and we asked the oldest in that same class was 18 years old. So why? Because the parents decided to send him when he was 12 years old to start first grade. So it was the same when I was there. Now in the city, kids start to go to school when they are 6 years old, they start first grade. In the village, which is the largest part of Ethiopia, about 80% of the population lives in the village. They are still, the system is almost the same.
Very good.
Excuse me, Ambassador. When is the next time?
What is your name?
My name is Michelangelo. When is the next time you're going to visit our congregation?
Wow. Wow. Whenever Rabbi Funnye invited me. I love to come to Chicago. I love this congregation, you know. Whenever I will get the opportunity, and if I come to Chicago, I promise I will contact Rabbi Funnye and come to visit the congregation. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, we, from the bottom of our hearts, on behalf of our community and our city, thank you so very much for your time, your energy, and your patience with us. And to let you know, as I said, we are planning a trip to Ethiopia, and we're planning to visit with you and with the Beit Israel community there. I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart from getting here from so very far away, from the western suburb, the north side of the city. Howard came from Chinatown. And Don dug out from Gary, Indiana, and all points in between. So just, can we all stand and just give the ambassador and I don't know if you have a couple of minutes. Do you have your camera, Cecil? I would like you have, I thought that was your new necktie. Would you come and get a picture?